Breaking news. The Indianapolis Colts lose a heartbreaker to the Philadelphia Eagles. Who could have saw that coming? Well, if you listened to our show last week, you might have thought it would have been us. Welcome back to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast here on Horseshoe Huddle, presented by Fan Nation at SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined by our co-host here, the lovely, talented writer now for Sports Illustrated and Fan Nation on SI.com at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. How you doing, man, after that I would say heartbreaking as in the title, because that really what it was yesterday from the Colts. How you feeling, man, after watching 60 minutes of Colts versus Eagles football?
Well, in 55 minutes of it, it seemed the Colts actually had the lead, or had command of the game. So not only to see a close game slip through your hands from arguably the top team in the NFL, well, they are, because now Minnesota's gone, but you also had the lead most of the game and were really making them react to you. So a little bit of a letdown for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, that the Colts, I think we'll get into the deep dive on the analysis. We'll talk offense, we'll talk defense, we'll talk everything, but it just seemed like it was right there for the taking for the Colts yesterday, and unfortunately they couldn't do it, couldn't come out on top, could not make the necessary plays when it mattered most. But before we get started here, if you haven't already, please go follow us at Horseshoe Huddle. Go and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go and follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube. Hit that bell. Since we've started the show, just the past couple weeks, that subscriber rate, love you guys, going up. Continue to do that, man. We love you guys. This has been so much fun, and we're going to continue to do this and bring you the best Colts content out there. So also go follow Drake at D Wallster Drake on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Moore NFL on Twitter. And welcome Stats Matt, saying, let's go, gents. Let's break down that awesome defensive performance with that horrendous offensive performance minus the first drive. Bailey Savage getting a little bit ahead of us, saying Colts beat the Steelers. We'll have to see what happens there. But let's get into it, Drake. I mean, first of all, the title of this episode is Gut Reaction, so let's give our gut reaction on exactly what we saw yesterday. How do you feel about this Colts team? How do you feel about the game yesterday? Just lay it all out there. And for those watching at home, in the comments, give us your gut reaction as well. Let's hear it. This is a safe space.
To be completely honest with you, I'll go with what everyone else is talking about. You have a defense, okay, that not only do they not have pay, but the Colts also don't have Leonard. You don't have your number one linebacker, arguably number one player, and your number one pass rusher. And you can still do that to the Philadelphia Eagles, who have literally, no pun intended, flown pretty high this season. They are the best team in the NFL by record and the front runner right now. And I thought the defense played them like they were nothing. And the offense, like Stats Matt said, boy, oh boy, outside of that first drive, they really, really stunk it up in the second half. So my initial gut reaction is this team overall is dependent on the offense to score like every other team, and they don't score.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. And now we got a ton of comments. Before I give you my gut reaction, let's get the comments rolling here. Joe, thanks for joining us here, saying, hey, y'all had a very badass game this week. I'm a Cowboys fan always, but I think y'all had the game of the week. Appreciate that. I'm sure Eagles fans think so. Not sure about Colts fans. Our good friend Tom Brady talking about the tough loss. Tim Milliken, buddy, thanks for joining us here. Said third from the last drive, Colts went conservative, scared to win, tried to burn clock, then gave all the momentum to Philly. Second to last, they got aggressive, but in the red zone, tried to run up the middle, a fake end around that never works, takes too much time, then a sack. Play calling still sucks. And Tim Milliken says frustrating. I think he sums up most of Colts fans there. Stats Matt, his gut reaction, feels so bad for the defense. Also feel bad for the wide receivers and JT. The O-line and quarterback are letting the rest of the team down so bad. And Stats Matt tells Tom Brady to shut up. We love to see it. We love to see it.
Whoa.
But so here's my gut reaction. I kind of wrote about it this afternoon because I mean, if you guys haven't noticed, I'm a little bit under the weather, not feeling too hot, but hey, we're gonna try to keep the energy up and going for at least a half hour here. My gut reaction to the game was the Colts have made so many changes this year, just over the last month. I mean, we talk about change at quarterback from Matt Ryan to Sam Ellinger back to Matt Ryan. Talk about firing Marcus Brady, the offensive coordinator. Talk about firing Frank Reich and replacing him with Jeff Saturday. And while the changes seem to be catching on last week against the Raiders, and including the offensive line changes, we had said that it was against the Raiders, who at the time were 2-7. They needed to go up against a bigger test like the Philadelphia Eagles, which, by the way, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are good. I don't consider them a great team, just considering who they've played and how they've looked this year. Yeah, they're 9-1, good record, but they played a lot of bad teams. My gut reaction is with all those changes, this Colts team is still the same Colts team that we've been seeing for 11 weeks now. The defense has kept the team in the game almost every single game, almost every week. And yet we have an offensive line that continually breaks down. And yes, you're dealing with some rookies that are and second year guys that haven't played much that are learning the ropes. That's what happens. But at the same time, that's what's one of the biggest things holding this team back is the offensive line. You have a quarterback that can't really move in the pocket, and you have a running game that can't get going. Where you have one of the best running backs in the league, there's just no holes opening up for him. It's been 11 weeks. Colin Cowherd, guy is famous for saying, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. The Colts are showing us who they are. They're a team that has a good to great defense, but they have an offense that's dysfunctional, mistake prone, and a team that can't capitalize. And so far, that's exactly what they've been. It's why they have a 4-6-1 record and why we're standing here today.
Well, and sometimes it can all look really shiny and beautiful from the outside. And if you look at the Colts offensive line, you see names like Braden Smith, you see names like Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, even in his own right, Fries made a name for himself, and Raymond up until this game had played pretty good. And so then you have Matt Ryan, Jonathan Taylor, you have all these names on offense, and you expect with a veteran like Saturday, you'll be able to at least move the ball somewhat like you did. And boy, it showed that they were playing the Raiders defense. That is absolutely for sure. It showed that only Crosby and Jones could really do something. And boy, they underwhelmed again. And it's like you said, it's just who they are. 11 games, it definitely shows.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of, again, this is who they are. You talked about big names on the offensive line, hasn't lived up to it, and the rest has kind of spiraled with it on offense. But yeah, let's get into the meat of the game. What everybody wants to talk about here. When the Colts fell to the Eagles 17-16, had a 13-3 lead entering the fourth quarter, and just could not. They had multiple chances to, in a sense, step on their throat, and this game just couldn't come up with it. And then let's kind of start with, I want to start with the quarterback, with Matt Ryan. Stats Matt said Ryan's inability or unwillingness to throw 10 yards down the field is also a bad spot. That's certainly something that I noticed yesterday. Is it doesn't seem like this Colts offense stretches the field enough. I'm not saying you need to throw it deep for 10, 15 times a game, but there were times where the Colts had set things up to take those shots, had ran it with Jonathan Taylor, and you could see the safeties and the linebackers getting closer and closer and closer to the line of scrimmage. That's when use some play action to the one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the game, and try to take a shot to guys with like Paris Campbell with that 4.3 speed, Alec Pierce with 4.4 speed, who we've seen make plays down the field. That's one of the main things. But man, I think this is the biggest thing for Matt Ryan in this offense was just a failure to execute. There were opportunities there. They just didn't make the plays in the right spots, and it's kind of been the same way all year long.
Well, and you can tell from the stat line at 23 for 32 for 213. You can tell that's not a guy who's been taking any shots downfield to guys like Alec Pierce. There was a couple tweets I saw that were brilliant. Deep shot to Alec Pierce, please. Maybe a deep shot to Alec Pierce would be nice. I mean, no deep shots from Ryan. He showed no arm strength, no desire to throw the ball down the field. And also, I want to say something. Chase McLaughlin, I've been seeing some stuff about, oh, well, he missed a field goal. This is a practice squad guy who has literally never played as many games in his entire career as he has this year. He is 19 for 23 in 9 games. They are asking this guy, who is not a full-time starter, to go out there and basically be the point supplier. And so you can't trade field goals for touchdowns. You're down 4 points usually. So it's like that's just how the Colts have played offense, and that's how Matt Ryan kind of did dink and dunk. Let's at least get in field goal range, and let's go ahead and sleep on the side of the defense and let them carry the team.
Right, and I see David Adkins. Appreciate you joining, buddy. He says it was the PI on Franklin and the missed field goal. I assume you mean that there was those that cost the Colts the game. But at the same time, I mean, yeah, was there that PI on Zaire Franklin inexcusable? Absolutely. Didn't even turn around to look for the ball, just immediately
Definitely.
panicked and tackled Miles Sanders way down the field. That certainly didn't help on that final drive. The missed field goal from Chase McLaughlin, again, it is a mistake, but it's also a 50-yard try. Am I going to kill the guy over a missed 50-yard field goal? Probably not. The thing is, the Colts defense held the Eagles to 17 points. Before this game, the Eagles had scored 20 points or more in every single game in the 2022 season. When you hold a team to 17 points, that should be more than enough for the offense to get the job done and for an NFL team to go out there and win. And that's what the Colts defense has done pretty much every single week. They've held teams to around 20 points or less. And it's gone on the offense for not holding up their end of the bargain. To score 7 points on the opening drive and then to score 9 the rest of the way, that's inexcusable. You've got guys like Jonathan Taylor, a Pro Bowler, Michael Pittman, who's supposed to be a wide receiver 1. Matt Ryan, a former Pro Bowler. You guys are Pro Bowlers on the offensive line, and Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly. I'm not going to make excuses for a unit that has guys with that pedigree, especially when the defense has to go out there and basically carry this team for 45, 50 minutes just so the offense can have a shot at the end. No. The defense did their job. This one is solely on the offense.
Yeah, and the defense really didn't have, they weren't penalty heavy like the offensive line was. That's another thing, is that there were a lot of rookie mistakes. And look, man, the Colts have Raymond. They believe in him clearly. There was a game where I think against Denver, he had 4 penalties, and they did not take him out of the game. They believe in this guy, but he's a rookie. And I thought that the defense played great. Another thing is like Taylor, yeah, his stat line, 22 carries, 84 yards, a touchdown. That looks good. 3.5 yards a carry, though, and he fumbled, and it cost the team. And he has not looked himself. Three he's put on the field, and all 3 have been picked up. So from top to bottom on that offense, from the coaches all the way down to the third string guys, it's dysfunctional. Something's wrong, and it's probably not going to get figured out this year.
Yeah, and I think also we're going to talk about this. Tim Milliken brings up a great point. I think the team in the backs of their minds expects to screw up and beat themselves at some point. There's definitely, it seems like, a confidence issue with this offense in particular. They don't look like they're ready to attack teams. They definitely look like they're playing conservative. They're trying not to make mistakes. I definitely see it out of Matt Ryan, who's afraid to really test the waters on some throws. He's afraid that he's going to fumble the football with how the season started out. That kills an offense. And when you're this type of play calling that it's been, I understand that Parks Frazier had a good game last week, but there were some times where it felt like he was getting a little bit too cute, things like that. There's definitely a confidence issue with this offense. And until this offense can kind of get themselves out of that funk and keep things going, we're going to have the same thing week after week after week. It doesn't matter the opponent. Stats Matt says here, Pittman and Pierce are able to out jump and physical dudes, and we don't use that. Same with Paris and his speed. We have Pierce and Pittman to use for a fade route in the end zone, and we have never tried that. It has kind of perplexed me in a sense that, I mean, Drake, you could probably, I wonder if you can maybe pick on this too. We've had Michael Pittman Jr. this is his 3rd season in the NFL. How many times have the Colts used him in his 6'4", 220-pound frame, just throwing to the back corner of the end zone, one on one with a cornerback, and telling him to go high point the football. How many times has we seen that? I don't. It's whatever number it is, it's not enough because the Colts hardly ever use Michael Pittman Jr. in that scenario, and I just have never been able to pinpoint why that's the case.
I've actually seen them use Mo Alley Cox more. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen them use I've seen them use Alec Pierce more.
They've used
Um,
Jelani Woods, which I
they've used
understand,
Jelani Woods more.
6'7", big guy,
Yeah.
but man, Pittman's out there too. Pittman's no slouch. He's a big dude.
I don't understand it. It's one of those things where he pretty much is I mean, he's got the physical, he's got like the weight too. He's not just a tall, lanky dude. I mean, there's a lot of mass to that guy, and for good reason. He puts in the time in the gym, and you should throw him the football and throw it high. Let those boosters get up and let him grab that ball. That's a good point. They really haven't done that at all, ever.
Yeah, I've seen him to like try to get him on crossers in the end zone, but for a guy that big and a guy that it's not like Michael Pittman is big, but he's like skinny. I mean, he's 6'4", 220. He's built. He's a
Oh, yeah.
physical wide receiver. We see him when he gets the ball in the open field. He's tough to bring down because he runs exactly like his father did back in the 90s, early 2000s, where huge guy, huge running back, and he was a handful to bring down. That's Michael Pittman. He's just taller. So I don't really understand that. And then kind of getting back to the Chase McLaughlin field goal, Stats Matt, another great point. That 50-yarder would have been 45 without -5 yards on first and second down.
Oh,
That's a good point.
wow.
Too many times this offensive line hurt themselves with penalties, whether it was the ineligible man downfield for Bernard Raymond or a holding call Bernard Raymond. 3 false start penalties by Will Fries. I understand, man, you're only making like your 3rd start ever, but at the
Fair.
same time, you gotta that those small little penalties might not seem like it at the moment, but they kill drives. They stall drives out. They make it where an offense that's having trouble enough trying to move the ball, they can't make up that extra 5 yards if a 2nd and 9 turns into a 2nd and 14. You know what I mean? So all of that combined is just kind of what makes this Colts offense such a dysfunctional mess.
Well, and to compound onto it with some more facts, they allowed 8 QB hits
Mm-hmm.
and they allowed 4 sacks out of those, meaning that every 2 times Ryan was getting hit, he was getting brought down with it too. And so that not only shows, I mean, the obvious is that Matt Ryan is terrible at moving out of the pocket, but is that the line showed great poise against the Raiders. And I go back to this again. I'm not trying to slam the Raiders defense, but they're not good.
They're not.
And they're just not a good defense. It's just how it is. And so I think that it was a bit of a reality check for the offense that, look, it gets a lot harder than that. And you can't just put your entire performance against a defense like the Raiders.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that the Colts knew that this was going to be a bigger challenge, but they certainly didn't step up to that challenge. And Stats Matt says how Brian Baldinger showed why Jonathan Taylor failed after drive 1, and it was because 2 guys that the Eagles picked up off the street this week in Linville Joseph and Ndamukong Suh absolutely manhandled Ryan Kelly and Will Fries in the interior. And their ability to just throw them around like they were rag dolls and get into the backfield to slow Jonathan Taylor down, that can't happen, especially when you have a Pro Bowl level center. And even though Will Fries is in his 2nd or 3rd start and is still learning, at least put up a little bit more of a fight. But I'm more concerned with Ryan Kelly. That should not happen when guys who are just coming off the street, haven't played football in months, you're all warmed up, you're in mid-season form, and you're not able to take on that. It's just not acceptable, and it's not winning football. And that's the Colts offense just didn't play winning football on Sunday, and it's kind of as simple as that.
Well, and last point from me here is I know it's Sue and I know that it's Joseph, 2 guys who have proven throughout veteranship in the NFL they can get the job done. They're also not even being seen by any other team. The Eagles were desperate, and you allowed 2 guys that, albeit they're good, they're not great anymore, and you allowed them to basically look great again. So
Right.
I don't know. That's a little uneasy with me.
right? Colts
Right.
Colts had 99 yards rushing yesterday against the Eagles. For an Eagles team that has averaged on the season 124 yards allowed per game, and you can't even take care of business against that, that's where it is. That's the state of this Colts offense right now. But hey, man, I'm sick of talking about how poorly one of the units of the Colts is doing. Let's talk about how good one of the unit or the other side of the ball for the Indianapolis Colts is playing in that defense. That defense, man. What first of all, how the first question, how disappointing is it that such a good year out of Gus Bradley's unit is going to waste? But second of all, what did you just see from the defense overall? What were your main impressions?
Well, I mean, they still got to the quarterback. They sacked Hurts 3 times. They
Mm-hmm.
made him uncomfortable, and like we said, the absence of Dallas Goddard, not only did their tight ends accumulate a whole slew of penalties, they didn't really even do anything. I don't even think one
Very
tight
good
end
point.
caught a pass. All right. So that allowed those linebackers to literally stare at Hurts. And he still was able to get. I actually have something here. Hertz alone had, I believe it was 259 of the, oh yeah, 259 of their 361 total yards. So he had to
Wow.
do everything. The Colts shut out everyone else. It was Quez Watkins that caught a touchdown. I mean, that defense played. They came to play. They played tier 1, grade A, and they still freaking lost. And that's gotta, you can't tell me that those defensive players aren't a little bit frustrated by that. So
Right. I think the defense played solid. I mean, the Colts won the turnover battle yesterday. They were able to force a fumble on AJ Brown, which when the game started out, AJ Brown, I thought, okay, here we go again. It's another AJ Brown versus the Colts. He's gonna go off for a buck 50 and a touchdown or two. But he started to go off, and then a guy by the name of Stephon Gilmore said, all right, enough of this. And then Gilly's lock started following him around the field. AJ Brown wasn't used nearly as much after Stephon Gilmore was put on him. So you saw him step up. You saw Isaiah Rodgers step up. You saw Kenny Moore have some good tackles in the running game. Even Brandon Faison. Shout out Brandon Faison, who got cooked a couple times by Devontae Smith. And then he finally put his foot in the ground and said enough of this and became more physical as well. So I think when we talk about Jalen Hurts, I think the Colts did enough. Were there areas where they could have played a little bit better against Jalen Hurts? Oh, absolutely. I think and you had sent me this stat before. I'll give you the credit for it here. Hurts had 16 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown on the ground. One of the keys that I said was keeping Jalen Hurts in the well, not letting him escape the pocket and really hurt them with his legs. I think that's something that the Colts defense really could have stepped up with and probably helped. But at the same time, I think generally throughout most of the game, they did a good job of containing him, making sure that he had to make those reads down the field. Saw Zaire Franklin numerous times being a spy on Jalen Hurts. Really wish Zaire would have been the spy on Hurts on that final 3rd and 7, where it just looked like the Red Sea had parted and he was able to
yeah,
just walk right in for that
yeah.
game-winning
He
touchdown.
even did a little jump.
Right, right. But you make a good point. They were able to get after him a little bit. And they were able, they got 3 sacks on him. I think Unique Ngakwe accounted for 1.5. Zaire Franklin had a half sack, and then I think Odenigbo had another half sack. Uh, it's I when you hold a team like the Eagles, I'm getting back to the same point. When you hold a team like the Eagles to 17 points, that should be good enough to win. It really should. And I think the defense stepped up to the plate. They gave the offense multiple chances. They forced turnovers on Eagles drives that it seemed like the Eagles had the momentum, especially after the Jonathan Taylor fumble. They
Mhm.
stood tall. It was only 3 plays later, and Zaire punched the ball out of AJ Brown's hands to get the ball right back to the Colts offense. When their name and when their number was called, the Colts defense, for the most part, they weren't perfect. They weren't perfect by any means, but for the most part, they answered.
Well, and it's hard to stay perfect when you're essentially relied upon to do all of the repossessing. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
they have to continuously get that ball back because there's just punts, field goals, and in one case a missed field goal. And, pretty much every single defensive player actually played their tail off. And yes, like you said, Brandon Faison came in and he finally showed up, and he showed up against the best team. You keep Hurts to under 200 yards passing as well. You have an advantage like no Dallas Goedert running down the seam. And again, those linebackers just have to look at you. You force the Eagles to run the lowest total they have in an entire game this year. And we're in week 11.
Mhm.
NFL fans were, and this is the first time they've been under 20 points, and so it was against a losing team too. That shows the grit and just the all out efficiency. I think is a great word to describe the Colts defense.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Let's get to some comments here because there's a lot of good ones. Stats Matt saying if we had a pass rush, this defense would be the best defense in the league. And I think Stats Matt probably means a consistent pass rush because
Yeah.
you see flashes of it. And when those flashes happen, you think, my goodness, this defense, as he said, could be exceptional. And I think you really notice it when Kwity Paye is out, especially because when you have somebody at the level of Kwity Paye than opposite of Unique Ngakoue, they can feed off each other. And with Kwity Paye down again, I'm certain that didn't help as far as containing Jalen Hurts either, because Kwity Paye is the best edge setter that the Colts have. Tim Milliken, AJ Brown still gives me nightmares. Hey man, I'm in that same boat. I was just like I said, first quarter, about middle of the second, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be another vintage AJ Brown versus the Colts. Thankfully, Gilly Locke and Stephon Gilmore was able to kind of manage that the rest of the way. Stats Matt again, he did have his best game, yet there wasn't much first for the D line in pass rush. But again, Faison only lost on comeback routes and had some good tackles in the run game. Haven't really seen that. And then from Colts loyalist here, this is a great point. This D with an average offense would be a really good playoff team.
Oh, that's hard to hear.
It really is, but it's true. It really is true.
Means they're not even average.
when you think about it, I mean, the Colts are averaging 15 points a game. In today's NFL, that's not going to get it done.
No.
Maybe in the 80s. Maybe in the 80s
And
it gets it done. But 15 points a game, when you have a Pro Bowl running back, Pro Bowl left guard, Pro Bowl center, it's just unacceptable. It really is. And Jason Nichols, thanks for joining us, buddy. He says, we're just not a competitive team this year. It's terrible. I don't know why we continue to go after old, stiff quarterbacks instead of some young legs that can move the defense. Can't keep saving the day. Hey, man, you're not the only one. I think a lot of Colts fans, a lot of Colts beat writers, myself included, that follow this team day to day, it's just time. It's time to stop putting the Band-Aid approach. It's time to go all in on a young quarterback. We'll see. Obviously, we're months away from the draft process, and believe me, we're going to have a lot of draft coverage come March and April. But it's just time. And here we said Tim Milliken, one of the highlights for him of the game, the Jalen Hurts and blue dance off right after that touchdown. I was more wondering if there were people in the crowd that were going to crucify themselves after that happened than watching the dance off. But it's just I think we've said enough. I think I have said it enough, especially. It's a different week, but it's the same story. Colts defense keeps them in it. It's whether or not the Colts offense is going to be able to answer the bell and put points on the board and back up this defense. And so far in 2022, that just hasn't been the case.
Well, and they jump out to a lead in the manner that they did, and then the Eagles defense allows only I believe it was 6 points in the entire second half, and Ryan had to over target Pittman and Campbell. And just for a little stat for you, 11 of the 23 completions were to those two, and 142 of the 213 receiving yards were from two guys.
Whew.
And so it just shows that there's still 12 completions there, but yet there's only 71 yards to account for those 12 completions. So outside of Campbell and Pittman, he was just throwing just the little tiniest of completions and just not. He just isn't he didn't play confident. Matt Ryan's a deep ball guy. He always has been. And it's just, he just doesn't seem very functional right now, like in this on the Colts. Just doesn't, being honest.
Yeah, and with the schedule coming up for the Colts, well, you got at Dallas, which I'll be at. You got at Minnesota. You've got at the New York Giants. The Steelers are coming to town on Monday night. The Los Angeles Chargers are coming to town on the Monday night after Christmas. Those are tough games. Those are really, really tough games. The Colts might only be favored. I haven't even seen the line for the game next Monday. But if they're favored against the Steelers, they're probably only going to be favored against them and then against Houston in week 18. It's tough sledding ahead for the Indianapolis Colts. Real quick, Stats Matt said months away until the draft, but draft season is happening now. You're not wrong, buddy. You're not wrong. Joe Allen, thanks for joining us. It all comes down to the offensive line. And I think you're correct, Joe. Yeah. I really do. Here we go. So we've talked about the game ad nauseum. I don't think there's much more we could say, but hey, let's end it on a little bit of a high note. Colts player of the game, Drake. Who was the guy that stood out? Who was the guy that tried to put the team on his back, at least, to try to will the Colts to a victory?
I always like to try to go with a non-obvious one, but you really don't have an obvious one from the game, unless it's pretty much going to be defense. And I picked Zaire Franklin. I understand the call. He had a bad moment where he panicked and just panic hugged. But 12 total tackles, 5 on his own, half of a sack, a QB hit. He was watching Jalen Hurts the entire game, and it seemed like when he wasn't, Hurts got away. So all I can say is that Zaire Franklin is a bona fide stud. He's a bona fide starter, and he played like it.
I think Zaire Franklin will be the starter at will next year, because I don't know if the Colts can afford Bobby Okereke, and with Shaq Leonard coming back, we may see Zaire take Okereke's spot again. Way ahead of ourselves there, but
yeah,
I have a feeling that the Colts will give up more than 17 points if Zaire Franklin isn't on the field yesterday. So that's a good pick. I'm going to go defense as well. I'm going to go with I think I'm going to go with Unique Ngakoue. Okay. I think he out of the pass rushers, he probably had his best game as a Colt. 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks yesterday. I might give a little nod to Stephon Gilmore for also shutting down AJ Brown, like I was talking about. But yeah, you come away from this game, and if you're picking a Colts player of the game, has to come from the defensive side of the ball, because that offensive side, it's just really inexcusable. I know the Eagles have a pretty good defense, but to only put up 16 points again, eventually this offense has got to figure it out if the Colts want to win any more of these games here moving forward. So that's it for our show today. Actually, real quick, since Thanksgiving is coming up this week, and I'm not even sure if we're going to have a show on Thursday night because I'll be out of town. I'm not even sure what Drake's plans are for Thanksgiving, but just in case here, Drake, let's give one last thing for the fans. What's your prediction next Monday night? Colts Steelers, go.
I had a number. I think I wrote an article on this, and I can't remember what it was, but I had them something like 24-9. I just think Pittsburgh. I think right now, or at least when I wrote the article, Pickett had 2 touchdowns and 8 picks. I mean, this is a guy that's just now getting his feet wet. They haven't done well at all. They're not good on defense either. If there's a get right game for the Indianapolis Colts, this is it. And if they don't win this game, I don't know, man. I don't know.
So. Hey, that's good. 24-9. Call me cynical, call me realistic, whichever one you want to go with. Until the Colts consistently score 20 points, I don't know if I can pick them to score 20 points also moving forward. The Colts also have not beat the Steelers since 2008. Almost 15 years. The Colts have not been able to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you know what? I'm gonna go with it. I think the Colts do beat the Steelers, because I think the Colts are gonna make Kenny Pickett force him into some turnovers. I think Najee Harris is gonna have a tough day against DeForest Buckner or Grover Stewart. I'm gonna go Colts 16, because it doesn't seem like they could score more than that. Colts 16, Steelers 10. I think Indianapolis beats Pittsburgh on Monday night.
Nice. Nice. Very
So there you
nice.
have it, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. Stats Matt, as always, Colts loyalist, Tim Milliken, Joe Allen, Jason Nichols. I'm sorry if I missed some of you guys here. David Atkins, all of you guys, thank you so much. And again, please go follow us. Go like us on Facebook at Horseshoe Huddle. Follow on Twitter at Colts on FN. YouTube, subscribe. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I are going live. We're absolutely having a blast doing this show with you guys. You guys have been absolutely awesome with all the comments and everything. And hey, this Colts season may not be what fans had expected or wanted, but it has certainly been interesting. So again, go ahead and go follow Drake at DWalster Drake on Twitter. This guy has been pumping out great content, great articles. They've been getting my seal of approval. He doesn't need my seal of approval because he is just rocking it. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL if you want to peep out my stuff. But we appreciate it once again for everybody following along and tuning in. And we might be back later this week to preview the Steelers game, but if not, we will be back on next Tuesday night since the Colts play on Monday Night Football. Yep. Be back on Tuesday night to give our gut reactions and break down everything from Colts Steelers Monday Night Football. See you later, guys.
See you.